Hello everybody, it's the War Hipster here, coming at you with another Contrast Plus painting tutorial, and today we are painting the Lord Commander Bastian Carthalos of the Hammers of Sigmar. I'm so excited. This model is absolutely incredible, and well, we're just going to jump straight in and start painting him. He's been primed in Wraithbone, and the first colour we're going to be using is Retributor Armour. Now we're going to be painting this pretty much over all of his armour, excluding this shoulder pad and his knee pad and areas like the lightning bolts and things like that. So if you need any help, do just check out the box art. But for now, we're just going to start getting this Retributor Armour all over the areas that we want to be this nice bright gold. So with that Retributor Armour applied to Bastian's armour, he's now bright and gold. But what we're going to do now is we're going to shade it right down. Now the colour we're going to make is a roughly 1-to-1 mix of Contrast Medium and Fyreslayer Flesh. And basically, just want to pick a place to start. I'm going to start right here on the breastplate. Simplest place to do this. For all of you lovely people at home, I'm just going to start painting this all over. And the contrast medium is in there just to give it a little bit of extra flow, and also just to take the edge off of that Fyreslayer Flesh just a little bit, so it's not quite as oppressive as it is sometimes wont to be. So with that Fyreslayer Flesh and Contrast Medium mix applied, as you can see, I've also applied it to his face and his head. Now this is important for later, so bear in mind that if you haven't done this, just quickly go back and do that as well. Forgot to mention it last time, mistakes were made. Anyway, what we're going to do now is we're going to work on brightening up that gold armour once again, and the colour we're going to be using is Retributor Armour. And what we're going to do is we're just going to start layering this over the top of our wide open spaces on the armour. Just like this. Just leaving anywhere with that Fyreslayer Flesh and Contrast Medium mix has really settled. And in the super fine details, like this sort of area here around the gorget, I'm just going to leave that because we're going to do some highlights very shortly, and we don't need to relayer it. Just looking for those really wide open areas. Just like that. So with that shininess now restored to the Retributor Armour, well, using the Retributor Armour, what we're now going to do is we're going to highlight Bastian. And, well, the colour we're going to make is a roughly 2-part Stormhost Silver to 1-part Retributor Armour mix. When I say 2 to 1, what I mean is 2 brushfuls of Stormhost Silver to 1 brushful of Retributor Armour. What we're going to do is we're just going to start picking out all of the edges around the model across all of that gold. So with that highlight applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to be adding a little shiny glaze. Now the colour we're going to be using is a roughly 3 parts contrast medium to 1 part Canoptek Armour Shade gloss. Now you could use anything here, you could use water, you could use Lamium medium for example, but I'm using contrast medium because I really like the way that it flows. And what we're going to be doing here with the Canoptek Armour Shade gloss glaze, we're just going to be adding it to the deepest recesses like this, just to make them look nice and shiny. And what we can also do is we can just use a really small amount of this on our brush to just add a little bit of an extra shine over the top of our flat armor panels, like so. Now this stage is optional, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. But I find it just elevates those recesses to the next level. And so with that done, we do have one more highlight to do on all the armour, but we're not going to do it just yet because we've got a lot more metallics to do, and the highlight, well, final highlight is the same across all of them. So what we are in fact going to do now is move on. Now, the next colour we're going to be using is Black Templar, and we're going to be using this across all of the soft joins in his armour. So, for example, just down here, behind the knee, and his boots, so with that Black Templar applied, it's still drying, but not to worry. What we're going to do now is we're going to just take some thinned down Runelord Brass. I'm going to use this on the shoulder pad. Oop, got a little bit of fluff there on the end of my brush. Get rid of that. We're going to use it on the shoulder pad and on the knee pad. So with that done, what we're now going to do, we're going to take some Aethermatic Blue. I'm going to paint this over the top of those Runelord Brass areas. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to use some thinned down Brass Scorpion, I'm going to use this as sort of a relayer for those Runelord Brassy areas. So what we want to do is we just want to start painting this this Brass Scorpion, I should say, over the top of all of the raised areas, like this, just leaving the Aethermatic Blue in the deepest recesses. So with that done, you should now have that kind of really awesome sort of bluish glow that you can see on the box art within the shoulder pad and the knee pad. So what we're going to do now is going to take some Canoptek Alloy. I'm going to use this to highlight these areas. That we've just done with the Brass Scorpion. And so with that done, just to finish these areas off, what we're then going to do is going to take a teeny tiny amount of some Baharroth Blue and use this to highlight the eyes. Just like that. And with that Baharroth Blue applied, we then take a tiny, tiny dot of white scar and just on the sort of pupil of the eye. We just add it like that, make it look nice and glowy. So with that done, we're now going to move on from metallics, at least for a little while. We do have a lot of silver left to do, but we are going to paint the next big thing on him, which is going to be the cloak. Now, the process of doing the outside of the cloak here and the outside of the skirts as well is the same. So, well, and the inside is the same as well. But what we're going to start with is we're going to start with Talassar Blue. I'm going to make a nice, even, smooth coat of this all over the top of the outside of the cloak. So we're just going to start up here by the recess. We're just going to pull it down in these nice, big, broad brush strokes to get a nice, smooth, even finish. And so with that Talassar Blue applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Ultramarines Blue. I'm going to use this over the top. So with that Ultramarines Blue applied across all of our blue, what we're now going to do is we're going to do our final kind of layer down, which is going to be a roughly 3 parts contrast medium to 1 part Leviadon Blue mix. And it's just like before, we are just going to paint this all over the top of our cloak. So with that done, what we're now going to do is, just before we do all the kind of highlights on the blue, is you're just going to deal with the inside of the cloak first, because we've got that same, well, a very similar blue on that kind of trim going around the big cloak. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by, interestingly enough, making a roughly 2 parts Apothecary White to 1 part Magos Purple mix. I'm going to be painting this all over the inside of the cloak, like so. Don't worry if this seems a bit weird. We are going to brighten it back up to a nice bright white. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Talassar Blue. I'm going to use this to paint in that trim going around the inside of the cloak. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Corax White. I'm going to use this to basically re-layer those inner cloaks. So I'm just going to start here, for example. We're just going to get this all over like this, just avoiding anywhere where our Apothecary White and Magos Purple mix is settled in the deepest recesses. So for example, on that inner skirt, just there, you pretty much only need to do that bit and a little bit in there as well, just to make sure it's nice and bright. But otherwise it's really kind of nicely shaded against the outside light. Similarly, this large cloak just here. And so with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to colour in the hammer sigil with some Runelord Brass. So with that now done, what we're going to do is rattle through a few more base coats, and then we're going to do all of the shading and highlighting afterwards. So the next colour we're going to use is Wyldwood. Now we're going to be using this in 2 different sort of places. We're going to be firstly using it on all of the leather details. So for example, this pouch just here on his belt, and of course the belt itself, as well as any other leather straps and things dotted around the miniature. So we've got a couple just here as well. Like so. We've got these ones here. Like that. What we're also going to do, we're going to use this Wyldwood on his face. Over the top of that Fyreslayer Flesh. Which has acted as a beautiful little pre-shade. So you don't need loads of Wyldwood here. You just want to be careful around the circlet and the beard. Like so. And so with that done, what we're then going to do is we're going to take some Skeleton Horde. I'm going to use this to paint in all of the paper details. And with that done, we're then going to take some Shyish Purple. I'm going to use this to paint in the soft wrap of the hammer. So with that done, we also applied that Shyish Purple to the smoke just there, because looking at the box art, it is exactly the same. However, what we are going to do now is we're going to take some Apothecary White, and we are going to use this on his beard. Just like that. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Leadbelcher. I'm going to apply this to all of our silver details. Now, there's a couple of these all over the place. So firstly, we've got the scale mail just down here, like this. There we are. We've also got these large lightning bolts just here. We've got the belt. We've got the hammer and the lightning on his back up here. Like that. And we've also got the hammerhead as well as this bolt of lightning just here. On the gauntlet. And the sigil. So with that done, it's now time to add some shades to the miniature. And the first one we're going to use is Aethermatic Blue. And we're going to be using this on the hammer head, not on this kind of section back here, but just on the kind of the damaging part, the front bit. So this bit here, and this bit this side, and the facing. We're also going to be using it on the lightning bolts here and here, and on the design at the top. We're not going to be doing it on this scale mail or the gauntlets. We're going to be doing something else for them. So what we're going to do is just going to grab that Aethermatic Blue on our brush, and we're just going to start painting it over these sections. And with that done, we're then going to take some Space Wolves Grey, and we'll use this to shade the scale mail. And the belt buckle. And the silver on the gauntlets. And with that done, we then take some Basilicanum Grey, and we use this to shade the remaining sections of the hammer. So with that done, it's now time to add some highlights, because, well, Bastian is now at what I would call a War Hipster battle ready. However, as per usual, we are now going to take him to the next level. Now, the place we're going to start is on all of that silver. We're basically going in reverse order here, and the colour we're going to be using first is Iron Hand Steel. And basically what we want to do is on the larger kind of areas, such as these lightning bolts here, we effectively just want to leave that Aethermatic Blue in the absolute deepest recesses. Otherwise we want to do kind of basically a full relayer. Kind of like that. So just that little bit in there, and a little bit in there, and a little bit around the rivet. We want these to be nice and bright. Like so. On the scale mail, we also want to effectively relayer each one of the scales. Like that. And on the hammer, what we want to do is we want to highlight all the edges. Just like this. And with that done, we're then going to take a teeny tiny amount of Talassar Blue, not very much at all. And what we want to do is over these runes just here. So we just want to paint this. very carefully. Like that. And so with that Talassar Blue applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Stormhost Silver. I'm going to add some highlights. So what we want to do is we want to pick out all the edges in around the runes. As well as the sharpest points across all of the silver, like so. And then what we can also do, we can use this to add a little spot highlight to our gold armor, like I promised way back at the beginning of the video. So you just want to pick out the sharpest points on the armor, for example, that point there on the gorget, that little edge just there, and any of the little rivets as well. And we can do the same thing on that Runelord Brass shoulder pad and knee pad as well. Just like this. So with that done, the majority of our metallics are now finished. We've just got one more left to do, which is the Runelord Brass that we did down here. It's very, very simple. What we're going to do is we're going to take some Nazdreg Yellow. I'm going to apply this over the top of that Runelord Brass. So with that Nazdreg Yellow applied, what we're then going to do is we're going to take a tiny amount of Dorn Yellow. I'm going to use this to just add a little highlight. Just like this. So with that Dorn Yellow applied here and here, what we're now going to do is move on. And we're going to use some thinned down Doombull Brown. And we're going to use this to highlight all of the leather. Like so. And we're also going to use this to highlight his face. And with that done, we're then going to take a tiny amount of Skrag Brown. And we use this as a little spot highlight on the sharpest points of his face. So here is like the tip of his nose and his nostrils, his eyebrows, and his bottom eyelids. Just like that. And with that done, we're then going to take some Cadian Fleshtone. I'm going to use this to add some little dots going along each of the scars. Going across his head. And so with that done, what we're now going to do is going to take a teeny tiny amount of Volupus Pink, not very much at all. And what we want to do is we just basically want to run this very gently over the top of our scars. Like that. And also to add a little bit of it on the inside of the lip. Just there like that. And so with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take a teeny tiny amount of Baharroth Blue. I'm going to use this to paint in the pupils. Of his eyes. Not the pupils of his eyes. To just paint in his eyes. Just like that. And so with that done, just before we finish off the eyes, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Basilicanum Grey. Not very much of this at all. And what we want to do is basically towards the face. So we're going to add this on the beard. Just like this. Don't worry that it's going to be quite a hard transition. If you don't like it, you can always wash the brush. And then just where the two colours meet, just smooth it out just a little bit. Basically, when we do our highlight in just a minute, it's going to cover that up. So with that now done, what we're going to do is we're going to take a teeny tiny amount of white scar. I'm going to add this in the middle of the eyes. Like so. And then we're also going to use this to highlight the beard. Just like this. So with that done, the face is now finished. All of the metallics are now finished. And all of the leather is now finished. It's almost like we're nearly there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to highlight all of our blue cloaks. And the first colour we're going to be using for this is Teclis Blue. Now what we're just going to do is just going to very carefully start picking out all of the raised folds in the fabric with the Teclis Blue. And with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Lothern Blue. I'm going to add this as a little spot highlight to the sharpest points in our cloaks. Just like here, here, just like that, just to give the light something to catch off of. And with that done, our cloaks are now finished and they look flipping awesome. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to quickly highlight all of our parchment, and the colour that we're going to be using for this is Screaming Skull. And what we want to do is you just want to start picking out those edges around the edge of the parchment, as well as just run your brush over the runes themselves as well. Just like this. And so with that done, we're then going to take some Blood Angels Red. I'm going to use this to colour in all of the gems scattered across the model. It's got one there on the breast, got one here on the head, just there like that. We've got one on either side of the hammer. Like so. And we've got one on the back. And so with that done, just to finish off those gems, we're going to take a small dot of Lugganath Orange. I'm going to add that to the tip of each of these diamonds, right in the middle. So with that done, Bastian Carthalos is now finished, apart from his base, which is what we're going to do now. And don't worry, it's very simple, but firstly what we're going to do is we're going to take some brass scorpion, we're going to use that to paint in the dish of the brazier, just there. As we've already painted in the skull with silver. And so with that done, what we're then going to do is we're going to take some Wyldwood. I'm going to use this to colour in all of the soil. And with that done, we're then going to take some Basilicanum Grey. I'm going to use this to colour in all of the stonework, as well as to shade that brass scorpion and the silver. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to use some Nuln Oil. I'm going to use this to blend together, or at least to kind of make it all kind of flow together just that little bit more. And we're going to use this over the top of the soil and over the top of the stonework. Now, it doesn't look like it does a lot, but it does just pull those colours together just that little bit. And with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take a tiny amount of Black Templar. I'm going to use this to paint in the coals. And with that done, we're then going to take some Skeleton Horde. I'm going to use this to paint in the skulls. So at this point, it's a good idea to clear it, cover in that negative space, which is the bit that doesn't have any plastic detail on. So it's just these little areas just around the edges. And the colour I'm going to be using is Stirland Battlemire, because that's the colour I've done the soil. You could do this any colour that you wish. You just want to get this on so there's no kind of bare plastic shining through. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to dry brush the entire base, excluding the metals and the smoke on the brazier. And the colour we're going to be using for this is Tyrant Skull. I just want this to be a very gentle dry brush. Just lightly catching the edges, like this. And with that done, what we're then going to do is we're going to take some Iron Hand Steel. I'm going to use this to highlight the metal details. And with that done, we then take some Runelord Brass and we use this to highlight the brazier bucket thing. The one we did with Brass Scorpion. And with that done, what we're then going to do is we're going to take a teeny tiny amount of Cadian Fleshtone. I'm going to use this to add a few little spots in the smoke. Just like this. So with that done, I've added some tufts to his base. So all that's left to do, just to finish him off, is to take some thinned down Abaddon Black, or Abaddon Black I should say, and just paint this around the rim of the base. Now you don't have to do Abaddon Black, you could do any other colour that you wish. I'm just a sucker for a black rim on a base. And so, with that base rim complete, Bastian Carthalos, the Lord Commander of the Hammers of Sigmar, first amongst the Eternals, is now finished, and he is an absolutely breathtaking miniature to behold. I adored this as soon as it was announced. I had to have it, I had to paint it for all of you, and now I have to resist painting an entire Hammers of Sigmar once again. Oh, I mean, it doesn't get much better than this kind of miniature design, honestly. I tip my hat to you, Games Workshop. I tip my hat. If you enjoyed this video, you love the channel, and you want to support me further like these legends and bosses on the screen before you, you can do so. Head to patreon.com/warhipster or head to ko-fi.com/warhipster. Alternatively, you can now become a YouTube channel member by heading to the channel page and clicking on the join button just here, just like these absolute bosses have done. And if you just want to shoot me a little thanks, just because you really love this video, you can click on the thanks button just below this video. Don't forget to share it, like it, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And to make sure you stay up to date, don't forget to click the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Happy wargaming.